I'm Charles Onyegolu, and we heard the NNPP spokesman, Abdul Mumin Jibrin, making the case for what he says will be a big victory for the party and its presidential candidate in 2023, a victory which he reckons will end the dominance of the APC and the PDP and the challenge of the Labour Party. We're listening to all that. Our lead commentators who are with me for the rest of the program to shine their light on that discussion and on the other issues of the day, including their assessment of where the parties stand in the race to Aso Rock. And tonight, I'm joined by the policy strategist, Arise News analyst, and founder and executive director of Agora Policy, Waziri Adio, and by the public affairs commentator, Arise News analyst, and head of mass communications at Bayes University in Abuja, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi. Thank you very much indeed, gentlemen, for joining us. Let me start with you, Waziri. You heard the spokesman of the NNPP, Abdul Mumin Jibrin, earlier in the program, talking up his presidential candidate, their chances in 2023. He seemed fairly confident. How do you assess Mr. Kwankwaso and the NNPP's chances based on what you heard?
Well, he did what he has to do. A man got to do what he got to do. So I would have been surprised if he spoke otherwise. As usual, he's a very eloquent person, and he's also been around himself. Talking about Dr. Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, he's a formidable politician, and I think anybody that writes him off does so at his own peril. He's been around. He was in the House of Reps. He was Deputy Speaker in 1992, right? He was governor 2 times. He was minister. He was a senator. You know, and all of that. So it's somebody, and he's also a very popular politician. And let's give it to him. He also delivered when he was a governor in Kano State. So you can't take that away from him. And he has this movement that they call the Kwankwasia movement, which is also quite massive, especially in Kano and some parts of the Northwest. But does that translate to him becoming the inheritor of Buhari's magical 12 million votes? I don't think so. I don't know, but I don't think so. But, you know, Mr. Abdulmumini said that the inheritor of Buhari's guaranteed 12 million votes in the North is Principal Kwankwaso. I don't know. I don't think so. And also, something that he also didn't take away is this, which is quite significant, is that popularity of Kwankwaso is largely restricted to Kano and some parts, and maybe, you know, a sprinkle of here and there in the Northwest and maybe in the Northeast.
Yeah, but obviously he wasn't going to say that.
I'm not even sure in the North Central, yeah. Right? But that has not, you know, translated to presence in the South. Right. And so where is going to be the first to emerge or going to score, you know, to meet the spread? I don't see how that will happen.
Okay, let me bring you in, Professor Adeniyi. Do you hold out, based on Waziri's assessment and what you heard from Mr. Jibrin, do you hold out the possibility of a David versus Goliath electoral upset in 2023? Is there enough of an unknown quantity and a potential change in direction from the usual voting patterns in the past to make that a possibility?
Well, Charles, I thought his display was more of, you know, a verbal pyrotechnic, you know, showcasing of his skills as somebody who's got a gift of the gab, you know, and is leveraging on it to rather bamboozle us, you know, because I see, with great due respect to him, because I see a huge disconnect between what he's mouthing, many things he said, with reality, you know. Reality is that, like Waziri said, Kwankwaso is a very popular person in Kano, and I've made this point severally, that beyond Kano, I'm still to fit him into any other state or any other region. And I've also said it on this show that parties like NNPP and maybe some other parties, they fall into what we can call the fringe theory. The fringe theory is often very strong, but sometimes, most of the time, they're just outliers, you know, and they try to come into the center, but the ability to come into the center is often an illusion, often imaginary. But the credit I will give to him is that self-belief, the inner energy that he has, that is propelling him to express this level of confidence. But in terms of replicating that confidence or actualizing that confidence, there's still a distance between reality and the belief, and belief, as the case could be. I rightly pointed him to some of the polls that we are seeing. Most of those polls end with the three leading parties. NNPP is still struggling to fit in, and sometimes they don't even get any mention. And finally, sir, there's a lot said about Kwankwanso's credentials. No doubt we're not denying him of those credentials. He's got that pedigree, educational, administrative, political, etc. But those things are never enough to win elections in this country. It's not so much of your credentials, but it's so much of the network that we have built, the structures that you have established in the past, the social capital that you can leverage on, that you can harness, that will relate, that will help you garner votes.
Right.
I doubt if he has all of that. Otherwise, we'll have been seeing it spreading across the country. It's okay to say that he's probably doing some campaign, touching base with the grassroots, but how the grassroots will translate without the instrumentality of the political leaders, the opinion leaders, the structures, the social network that we're talking about, the social capital, it's actually it's a beggar's belief.
Okay, well, those are two very instructive analyses. I mean, from both of you, and I mean, I wouldn't have expected anything less, but putting it in very lucid perspective. But Waziri, you wrote an article recently in This Day newspaper assessing the likely outcome of the 2023 elections. What are your projections and your thoughts?
Okay, just quickly to go over the article. I said, I started covering politics. I was political editor of This Day in 1997. So I have close to 30 years experience in this business. And I said, I've seen enough as to make some calls, and I could make 3 calls. The first one is that the division within the opposition rank puts APC in good play. If the opposition had been united the way we had a united front against PDP in 2015, APC will be on its way out, But the opposition is fractured. In fact, when you look at the PDP that faced APC in 2019, that PDP is in 4 places, right? You have the faction led by Atiku, you have the G5 or G6 led by Wike, you have Kwankwanso, who is now leading NNPP, you have Peter Obi, Labour movement, Labour Party and the movement behind him. So that's the first point I made. The second point, also driving from that, is that even with the challenge posed by Labour Party and NNPP, I think the battle is still between the 2 leading parties, APC and PDP. NNPP will do quite reasonably well. The same thing with Labour Party, but I don't think they have enough, to make the difference in the next election, which is going to be in 3 months. The third point which I made, which is that, is that I don't see this election going to a runoff. We run a system where it's first past the post, right? Whoever comes first, you don't need to score 50% of the vote, right? So even if you score 25% of the votes and you happen to be the first, and you also happen to score the spread, you are going to have a winner. And from my own calculation, the 2 parties will easily score 25% in 24 states. And why do I say that? The 2 of them, APC and PDP, they've been around since 1998-99. They have structure spread over more than 800,000 wards in this country, right? That will guarantee them 25%. We're talking of 25% in the 19 states in the north, right? And I don't see how they cannot get 25% in 5 other states from the south.
Okay.
So I don't think the election will go into runoff. INEC is making preparation for a runoff. I think that is commendable. It's better for INEC to be over-prepared than to be caught napping.
Okay, well, that's a very instructive analysis. Prof, we had Valentino Zibo here yesterday, who says he's been crunching the numbers, and he seemed to think that they will score the 25% in 2/3 based on patterns they've seen and calculated in the southeast, south, southwest, and north central, which he reckons will give them at least 22 states, and 25%, and that they'll most probably achieve 25% in a number of states in the northwest and northeast. Does that not sound like a plausible calculation to you, or does it?
Well, Charles, I think it's very, very difficult, really, to put down any politician in this circumstance, who is trying to make a projection on the chances of their party or of their candidate, because most of the time, if you talk to any of the politicians, they will come around explaining to you why they will win the election. Just like we saw the display of the NNPP man a while ago, even when in reality we are saying that it's practically impossible, but they often have this conviction that they're going to win the election. I think it's okay to just allow individuals, political parties, to enjoy themselves. It's probably a way of giving them hope, and of course propelling them to further action. Do not forget, we still have 3.5 months or so to go. There's still more work to be done. It's possible that they have seen what we have not been able to see, and of course, I want to believe, maybe slightly different from the position of Waziri. I'm not joining issues with him because he's my boss. He probably has, probably has a crystal ball that he has, where he's able to gaze at one or two things. I want to believe that there are 3 parties in this race. In my own opinion, and Labour Party is included. The other 2 being PDP and APC. And how it's going to pan out is still to be seen. But still a lot of things in the calculation, campaigns, and of course things that may not necessarily be long-term, but short-term influencers of voters' decision. There are still a lot of them ahead that will play out, and those things will come in the determination of who the eventual winner is going to be.
Okay, well, that's very interesting, and I'm not going to get you to respond to that because I don't want a pat ball between the two of you. But basically, you made a very interesting point earlier that you see a victory at the first ballot, which I think is very interesting. Moving on from that, how do you assess the pace of the campaigns so far? As Prof was saying, just after 2 months of the season, just over 2 months, do you think the pace is hotting up, or are the parties taking it at a leisurely pace, given that they've got nearly 3 months left to the ballot?
Okay, just to say that by tomorrow, which is 25th of November, it will be exactly 3 months to the poll, right? So we have 3 months and 1 day to go, or just 3 months to go. We have an unusually long campaign season this time around, based on the provisions of the Electoral Act, and it costs a lot of money to run presidential campaigns, right? The campaign started on September 28th, so we've done about 2 months now, but the candidates and the parties have to pace themselves. So you see that we're not seeing all the actions that we should be seeing now beyond just the brickbats and all of that. So for me, I think the real campaigns, they are keeping their powders dry, they are conserving their energy, they are pacing themselves. The real campaigns will be in January and the 24 days in February. So that is when we're going to see the real
things hotting up.
The last mile of the campaign, and I think we should look forward to that.
Yes, I will certainly be looking forward to that. And Prof, a final word from you about the possibility of a runoff in this election, or a victory at the first ballot. What's your take?
I think it's a nice, welcome development that INEC is preparing for it, and that's what we expect of a responsible organization in charge of, umpiring the elections, as the case could be, but I don't see that possibility. I think that there will be a winner at the first ballot, and this is going to be the shock of the election, because there are so many things that are still unpredictable, and of course it is within the scope of 1 or 2 of the political parties, or maybe the third party, 1 or 2 or 3 maybe one of the three political parties, you know, to take advantage of it and coast home to victory without necessarily dragging us to the anxiety of a runoff.
Well, I'm glad that both of you agree on that, although normally you agree. But I mean, I think it's brilliant, because what you're giving us is a broad church of analysis, and that makes it, that gives the audience much more to go with. So I want to thank you very much indeed. Professor Abiodun Adeniyi is, of course, a public affairs commentator, a Rise News analyst, and head of mass communications at Bayes University in Abuja. And Waziri Adio is the policy strategist, a Rise News analyst, and founder and executive director of Agora Policy. Thank you very much indeed. That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again tomorrow from me and the entire team here in Abuja. Bye-bye, and thank you for watching.